So you want to incorporate motion blur in your photography, but how do you make sure it doesn't look like a mistake? While we love a happy accident where our camera misses focus or we don't realize our shutter speed is a bit low, what if you intentionally chose to use motion blur to help tell a story? Motion blur can be used to draw in the viewer and convey a feeling. It's a technique that's been around forever. It shows movement and life. It can look super romantic, energetic, or mysterious. Similar to that feeling we get when we look at candid point-and-shoot film photography, motion blur is a sharp turn away from the impossible perfection we see in AI-generated imagery, where blurry images feel more real, more imperfect and spontaneous, more human. We're going to share some of our favourite ways to use motion blur, but more on that later. First, if you're wanting to incorporate motion blur into your photos, it's important to ask yourself why. Why are you making this scene blurry? Is there movement naturally occurring? Does it fit the energy of the environment? Do you want the image to be more abstract? All of these are artistic choices, and you're the artist, so do whatever you want. Slow shutter can work at any time during the wedding day or portrait session, but it lends itself well to when there is less light around, like when the sun has set and during receptions. So what settings do you use to get this effect? First, slow down that shutter. Somewhere in the range of 1/30th of a second to 1/60th is a good place to start, but you can play around with this depending on how much blur you're looking for. This is also dependent on your camera and the inbuilt image stabilization, or IBIS. The stabilization in your camera is working to stabilize the image and avoid blur, so this may mean you need to slow down that shutter speed even more for it to be noticeable. Next, stop down your aperture. I like to be somewhere in the range of 4, 5.6, even to f8. This just gives me more chance of something being in focus and is also going to help with exposing the image correctly. The last thing to do is to adjust your ISO to correctly expose the image. Once you have a starting place, start shooting and see what you get. If it's looking too blurry, you can speed up that shutter speed. Not blurry enough? Slow it down. Here are some of our favorite use cases for using motion blur. We'll ask the couple to walk towards us. We'll direct them to look at each other, look around, maybe walk towards us with a bit of pace so there's a bit of energy. And this is great to use knowing that you have really stopped down your aperture to somewhere around f5.6 to f8. You know, you've got plenty in focus. So as they're walking towards you, there's a good chance that you will be getting some sharpness, but also you'll be getting their clothes moving, like there's just this element of movement. But I really like having something sharp so that you know it's an intentional choice and your couple's features aren't too distorted or anything like that. The next use case is also during the portrait session, where we will have our couple parallel to the camera, and we will follow them as they're going. And this is a great technique you'll often see in sort of sports photography with maybe a race car or something, where the race car is sharp or there's an element of sharpness, but the background is blurry. This is from tracking your subject and having them at a fairly similar distance from the lens the whole time. So often we'll be sort of planted in one spot and we'll get our couple to run sort of in a similar sort of circumference across us like that, or around us. And by using the panning technique, you're more likely to have them still a little bit sharp or a little bit in focus, but the landscape around them will be blurry. Our third favorite time to use slow shutter is on the dance floor. Naturally, there's a lot of movement. It's actually the perfect place to practice this technique. You don't have to direct anything, you can just test out your settings and people are moving around you. And you can sort of see what different shutter speeds are doing and when it's too blurry or not enough blur. And it's just a great time to hone this skill. Another thing to try when you're using motion blur is to add flash. You can incorporate flash to freeze your subject. This way you'll still have elements in the scene that are blurry, but your subject will be sharp. To help you nail the slow shutter look, we've created a motion blur cheat sheet. This cheat sheet gives you the settings to use to achieve this look. If you're interested, you can download the cheat sheet via the link in the description. If you want to learn how to harness the power of your flash, you'll want to watch this video. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one.